Hello, lovely souls, and welcome back to She Feels Everything. I'm Gill, and I'm so happy you're here with me again today. This episode is really special because we're going right back to the beginning. I want to share with you what it was like for me to be bone sensitive, the beauty, the pain, and the struggle of it. And I invite you to reflect on your own earliest memories of feeling the world differently. So make yourself a cup of tea, find a cozy spot, and let's journey together. So we're going to go right back to the beginning of my story, when I was born into this world as a baby who was an empath. Of course, I didn't know it then that I was an empath. I didn't know I was highly sensitive. I didn't know that I was different from everybody else. From as far back as I can remember, I always felt things deeply. I didn't have the words for it then when I was a baby and a young child. I just knew that I seemed to notice things other people didn't. The atmosphere in a room, the way someone's face shifted ever so slightly, the ache in someone's voice. I mean, I can remember I was born with what's called a club foot, and that's when your foot's turned inward and downwards. And I can just remember screaming a lot as a baby from the age, I think from as soon as I was born up to the age of 2, I was in and out of hospital having multiple surgeries to correct my foot. And that must have been so traumatic. I can't honestly remember a lot about it because I think I blocked a lot of the trauma from when I was a baby and when I was a young child. So a lot of my childhood experiences I just can't remember going back that far. But I do resonate with screaming a lot, and it must have been, thinking about it, it must have been really, really hard going in and out of hospital all the time. I mean, the hospital was like my second home, backwards and forwards in that hospital, having multiple surgeries on your foot. It's very uncomfortable, and having people poking and prodding at you. I always laugh because thinking now, as I was growing up, I never used to like going in and out of hospital ever since my surgeries when I was a baby. And I mean, I'll mention it later on in another podcast, but I ended up working for the NHS. And I ended up working in a hospital for 20 odd years. So that's quite ironic, isn't it? But really, I could feel the energy of people and places before anyone spoke a word. I mean, sometimes it was magical having that feeling. Like I was trapped into something secret almost, something just beyond the surface of ordinary life. But other times it was overwhelming. I carried emotions that weren't mine. I cried easily, like I was saying, I screamed a lot as a baby. I often felt like I was too much for the world around me. I mean, thinking back, going into a hospital environment as a baby, so people are in a hospital with illnesses, having treatments. So as an empath and as a young baby, I was picking up all those emotions of from people around me. So it's not just your own emotions of going through the trauma of having multiple surgeries, but it was also picking up on those emotions. It must have been extremely hard looking back that far. Being born sensitive meant I saw life through an open heart. That open heart made me caring, intuitive, and compassionate, even when I was that small as a baby. But it also left me raw, exposed, and vulnerable to all the emotions that other people carried. And I know many of you listening will understand what that feels like. If you're an empath and you're highly sensitive, you can imagine thinking back what your life was like as a baby and how you felt, how you acted around other people. I mean, like I said, I didn't realise I was an empath till much, much later, till I was in my 40s. So a lot of my childhood, especially when I was a baby, talking about being born sensitive, you just didn't, you thought you were strange, you thought you were different, weird even, for acting a certain way when other people were not acting the same way. Does that make sense? Part of having the surgeries when I was a baby was putting my leg in plaster. You can imagine what that's like as well when you're just starting to crawl and move around the house. I had a plaster on my right foot up to my knee, and my parents used to always tell this story, and this is one memory that I can vaguely remember. I was still in plaster with a cast, so it was stretching, like I said, from my foot to my knee, and they were looking around the house and they couldn't find me. And they eventually discovered me at the top of the stairs. I had crawled all the way up, like I was so determined to get up those stairs and to get to the top. And I remember thinking I must have been so proud of myself getting to the top of the stairs with a plaster cast on my leg. So the weight of that I was carrying as well as everything else. So yeah, that part is in my book as well, but it always brings a smile to my face when they were looking around the house wondering where I was and discovered I was actually at the top of the stairs. So as a toddler, and I'd crawled all the way at the top of the stairs. That's so funny. But that was sort of my first act of rebellion, if you like. Even as a baby, I had that quiet strength that I was so determined that nothing was going to stop me from doing anything, you know? I knew that I could do it. And yeah, that's been with me through my life, my whole life. I think I've always had that determination and that strength. If somebody says you can't do something, I'm always thinking, well, even if I've got a disability, I'm going to give it a good hard go. You know? Yeah, so that is a really nice memory I've got of when I was a toddler growing up. So I'm going to read a little bit from my book, She Felt Everything. So I'm going to read a bit from chapter 1, which is the topic of today's podcast, which is Born Sensitive. So this is where I write about those earliest moments of my sensitivity, as I was just talking about, how I was a baby and growing up into a world that seemed strange as an empathic and highly sensitive baby. As I grew from baby to toddler, that sensitivity only deepened. I wasn't shy, I was overwhelmed. I wasn't antisocial. I just needed solitude to recover from the noise, the energy, and the expectations. I was pushed to show up, to participate, and while I did my best, I longed to hide, to retreat, to just be still. I began to protect myself by building invisible walls. I blocked emotions I didn't know how to handle. I placed myself inside a kind of energetic bubble, not because I didn't want to connect, but because connection felt unsafe. I was absorbing everyone else's energy without understanding how to filter it. That's a painful place for a child to live in. But back then, no one talked about highly sensitive and empathic babies or toddlers. I was just the quiet one, the strange one, the one who wanted to be alone. And so I tucked my sensitivity deep down, thinking maybe I really was different in the wrong kind of way. Looking back now, I see so clearly that my soul chose this path, not as punishment, but as preparation. The surgeries, the misunderstandings, the loneliness, they forged in me a quiet resilience, a deep empathy, and a powerful spiritual sensitivity that I now honour with all my heart. As a baby, I was strong, not in a loud, forceful way, but in a deep-rooted, quiet way. I faced physical pain, emotional discomfort, disconnection, and energetic overwhelm, and somehow I kept going. My soul always knew it came here to feel and to eventually heal. And so the story begins, not in perfection or peace, but in pain and potential, because even as a baby, I was already defying the odds, already making my way up the stairs. That little baby girl who felt everything. She didn't know she was an empath or highly sensitive. She just thought she was different. Maybe you can relate to that. Did you feel different when you were a baby growing up? I want to turn this over to you for a moment. Think back. What are your earliest memories of sensing the world differently? If you're an empath, or highly sensitive, or even just on a spiritual journey, do you have any memories of what you were like as a baby? If you don't, there's nothing wrong with that. It may be that you had a traumatic experience, and sometimes when you have traumatic experiences as a baby or when you're a young child, it's the memories are blocked out to protect yourself. So there's nothing wrong with not being able to remember any memories about when you were growing up. Like I said, I can't remember very much at all, but it's not surprising really, all the trauma that I went through as a very young baby. But think back, if you can remember what you were like as a baby, have a think about that for a moment. Was there a time you realized you felt more than others around you? Did you feel the emotions of people? When you went into a room, can you remember experiencing anything? Were you overwhelmed? Is it too much for you being around a lot of people? And how do you see those moments now? Can you look back at your younger self with compassion, with love, with kindness? That's not always an easy thing to do either. If you're an empath or you're highly sensitive, knowing that your younger self is already carrying the gift of sensitivity, even way, way back when you were born into this world, you were already sensitive. Maybe even place your hand on your heart just for a moment right now. We'll do this together. Take a deep breath in and breathe out. And just say quietly to yourself, I honor my sensitivity. It's not easy to look back on your younger years sometimes, I know that. But it's important to think back of being born sensitive into this world and to always remember that your sensitivity is a gift. And now, as always, I'd like to leave you with a soul note, a whisper from my heart to yours. May you remember that being born sensitive is not a flaw, it's a gift. Even in the moments it feels too much, know that your open heart carries the light the world needs. Today, let your sensitivity be a soft strength that guides you. You are safe. You are seen. You are loved. So let's take a moment now. Close your eyes if you feel able to, or gaze softly down towards the floor. Place your hand on your heart. Connect with your breath. And take 2 deep breaths. Breathe in and breathe out. Breathe in and breathe out. And when you feel ready, open your eyes again. Come back to the present. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If today's episode resonated, I'd love for you to share it with someone else who feels deeply, or leave a review to help other sensitive souls find this space. And next week, we'll continue this journey through She Feels Everything. I'll be talking about the girl who felt too much, and we'll be sharing more of the story, more of what it means to walk through the world as a sensitive soul. Until then, take gentle care of your beautiful heart. Love, light, and blessings from Gill, the inner healing empath. She feels everything.